Hey, what's going on YouTube? Storm here with another video today talking about Zefras. Now, this deck has been homebrewed for a while. I've been doing some testing. I will say I did get some inspiration from, I think it was a guy on Pojo posted like some of his list and some of the things that he did. Now, granted, he was not running rituals in his build. I took some ratio ideas from his build and then kind of did some different things. So I will say I did not get the total. However, I've done a lot of testing with these particular ratios, and I find that this is the best thing you can do with Zefras to make them semi-consistent, like I said. And there's tons of different Zefra variants. There's a Tellarknight variant. There's a Synchro and Exceed variant. Pretty much you can do almost anything with this deck and find a way to make it work. But I think this is the most optimal build if you want to play all the summoning mechanics. And that's kind of how I feel like the deck should be played. I also do have a side deck here. I will go in a little bit more detail than usual, so if this is a longer deck profile, I apologize for that. But I'm going into sides, so it's going to be a little bit longer. So anyway, guys, first we've got 3 copies of Zefra. I just call them Secret of the Yangzing. Whenever I run 3 because when this first thing off, you can be special. This is what you want to be special summoning whenever your Yazi dies. The main thing about this, it is your Oracle, the Zefra Searcher, and you want to make sure you have your Oracle in your hand. Now that it also searches other Zefra Trap cards. So if you choose to run the Counter Trap, although I don't like the Counter Trap that much, but I can get into detail of that another time. Basically, that's what this card does. It searches your spells and traps, and it's great in this particular deck. Getting to your oracles is very important because that's basically your Stratos. And this is a Stratos for your Stratos. So you'll notice I say search a lot, and that's one of the weaknesses of this deck. So anyway, two copies of Exciton. Exciton is basically he's your set. He pops set cards. He's your Atlantean Marksman. The only cost is you have to target another Zefra card in your pendulum zone or on the field and pop. It's basically like a 1-for-1. Pops. He's your Atlantean Marksman. Pops. And the cool thing is, if he destroys your secret, he triggers his effect since he's being destroyed by a card effect. So that's pretty nice. 2 copies of Thubin. Thubin is he pops face-up cards. So he'll get you out of a lot of those annoying floodgates that give you problems. In particular, those would be Anti-Spell Fragrance and Mistake, and Jin. It can also get you out of the Jin Lock. So you really don't. That's why you don't see me mainboarding outs. 1 copy of the Dragon Zefra monster. Basically, Zefra Exa is his hand. He can be summoned from hand or graveyard whenever one of your Zefra cards is destroyed. A face-up Necros or Zefra card is destroyed while it's in the monster zone or pendulum zone. So it's something nice to have, and it kind of balances out the scale ratios because, as you can see, my scales are even at 7/7. So it's just one more 7 to balance out the scales, basically. And it can be summoned from hand if someone decides to MST my pendulum zone. And it's a 2K beater. That's nothing to be underestimated. 2 copies of Zefra Saber. I don't run ritual spells, but Zefra Saber is your ritual spell, so you don't really need to run ritual spells in the deck. So if you're playing Necros, I would definitely recommend getting your hands on this particular card. Come on, kitty. Sorry, she interrupted my video again. So anyway, Zefra Saber, it's basically like a ritual spell. If it's tributed from hand, it'll go to the graveyard. But if you have it on the field and you tribute it for cost, it'll go to the extra deck. So you're kind of seeing, it's good for both Necros and Zefras. It's a really nice card in this particular situation. 2 copies of Pilica. I do not run Pilica's sister Wen because I find Wen her effect is just kind of subpar. I mean, if I wanted to move something from my extra deck to my hand, I'd run something like Pot of Riches that's going to draw me extra cards. I feel like her sister's effect is a bit subpar. But Pilica, on the other hand, is a Wolf Bark for any Zefra monster. So a lot of times you'll be making seeds quite a lot. They'll end up in the graveyard. You don't really care because Pilica will bring them back. And yes, they do die on the end phase. But when pendulum monsters are destroyed, they go back to the extra deck. So it's a really nice way to bring your Zefra monsters you've used as Exceed materials back to the field. 2 copies of Treasure of the Yangzing. Now what this card does is it turns non-Zefra monsters into tuners. So basically, you don't run any tuners in this deck because Treasure can change things into tuners. He pretty much opens everything consistently you can pretty much make everything from 7 to 9 on a consistent base. You can also make some other random levels like 5, but I don't find it to be ultra spectacular. And 2 copies of both the Shadal ones. They're just kind of there to balance out the scales, give me more Shadal targets for my Shadal fusions. I find it to be a bit, they're not neither of them are that good, but to each his own. I just run them because it gives me 7 total Shadal monsters in the main. And for the non-Shadal monsters, of course, 2 copies of Deneb. Deneb searches 2 to 4, and and it's also searchable for Rhoda. Typically, opening to Neb is you're pretty happy with this deck. You open to Neb because it can get you to either of your scales, and it's just a good card in this deck. Like there's one build where I ran 3, and then one of each Shaddoll monster. I'm explaining this because this applies really well when you go into the side with this deck. So a deck like this, it's kind of difficult to figure out how you side. The Shaddoll engine is not very good against decks that don't go into their extra decks. So the meta decks right now that would be Necros and Cleese. So what I do is I completely side out the Shaddoll engine against Cleese and side in cards like I side in a Chow Fang and some other cards specifically for them. And same thing for Necros. So that's one of the reasons why I feel like these ratios are pretty solid. And 2 copies of Shret, because most of the time you want to tribute straight away for your Trishula, because that's what you're going to be ritual summoning more often than not. You can also tribute Zefras monsters, provided they match the level properly. So I could tribute a Treasure and a Pilica for a Trishula. That makes sense, because the levels are both 9. And same thing goes for Brio. If you really wanted to tribute him, with Zefras monsters, you could tribute him with a Pilica and a Treasure. So, speaking of Brio, 2 copies of Brio because he's your Ritual Stratos. He searches not only your Shrits and your Trish, but he searches your Zefras Saber, which is the main thing. He gets you to your rituals. He can also get you to a scale if you need it. And 1 copy of Trishula because Trishula's amazing. You don't need more than 1 copy, but one's pretty solid. And then that's all the monsters. Since I play all the summoning mechanics together, it's a pretty hefty monster lineup. There's not a lot of room for spells and traps. And almost no room for traps. 3 copies of Oracle. Oracle's your Stratos 3 of. It's kind of expensive. Gotta run 3. 2 copies of Rhoda because I found that it's the best ratio. I only have 4 targets and 2's kind of worked really well. 2 copies of MST because I run 2 MST in every deck pretty much. Even though, especially with Clifforts going back, you'll wish you had the MSTs. And 2 copies of Shaddoll Fusion. Like I said, most of the time the Shaddoll engine comes out when it would come out of the deck when I'm playing against Clifforts. So you can also play 1 L if you so wish. It works probably just as well, but I find that 2 Shaddoll Fusion's fine, because most of the time I want to be fusing for my deck anyways. 2 copies of Terraforming. It gives us that. Now I did some testing with or without Terraforming, and I found Terraforming was pretty good in the deck. Yes, Mind Crush is running around, but you also have to consider people will use their Mind Crushes against your monsters, and most of the times you don't really care because you can bring them back from the graveyard with Pilica. Terraforming is just a little bit of extra juice to make sure you get to your oracles. Now I only run 1 trap card, Jar of Avarice. Now my theory on this was that a lot of times my spells and traps get used, and especially my extra deck monsters in particular. So this just allows me to cycle my extra deck monsters back to back and draw an extra card. And it's really nice, late game card. Obviously with Pot of Avarice banned, this is the closest thing we're going to get. And I don't really have room for some kind of card like the Gusto Emerald in my extra deck. So I felt that running Jar of Avarice, just the 1, is pretty, like, my only trap. And all my traps are in my side. So I really don't feel that I need more than that. 2 copies of Construct, it's basically I'm having the normal Shaddoll ratio or bumping everything down by 1. 2 Construct, gets your Shaddolls. It's deck thinning. That's the main thing. You're playing a combo-oriented deck, and she deck thins, and she's a great card. 1 copy of Winda for the decks where it's good against, mainly ones that rely on special summoning twice. 1 copy of Shekanaga. Shekanaga is here because you can make it with what's his name? Secret and Treasure. You can make with Shekanaga. That's the main thing. But I just make Shekanaga most of the time because it's just a big booty. It's something she's just a really good fusion monster, so why not? And then there's only 3 synchros in here. 1 copy of Metaphys Horus. This card is so good in Zefras. Like, it's not even funny how good this card is. Basically, there's never really been a pendulum deck that can use Horus like Zefras can. And the main 2 effects you care about is, it has 3 different effects depending on what it's synchro summon. The main ones you care about are the effect monster effect, where it targets 1 card in the field and negates the effect. It also has a pendulum monster effect, where your opponent has to choose 1 monster they control and switch it to you, but it cannot attack. So essentially it's a one-sided creature swap, with the only restriction is that monster they give you can't attack. So if you make this, they have to give you a monster, and it does not target. So it gets over, Yazis and all those annoying you can't target me cards. Horus says, oh hi, give it to me. So it's a really good card. Now, the effect monster effect, you can use both, provided if you synchro summon with a Zefras monster, it's also an effect monster. So you get both effects in the same chain. Pretty nice. One copy of Yazi, it's a scrap dragon, you know, it's great and can't be targeted, and you can, when it does die, you can special summon a secret. I often make this when I think an Exciton comes in, because you're playing a pendulum deck, and the weakness of that deck is you're going to go neg when they blow up your board. So that's one of the reasons Yazi is a necessary card in this deck. One copy of Clearwing. Clearwing is so good. It's such a good card right now. Right now it's not great because synchros, but like I feel like this card could literally like go, if there's a synchro deck that can make this card on a regular basis, it could skyrocket. It's such a good card. In fact, you can just bounce. It's really great in a clipboard matchup because it stops their tribute summon discs, and it does not stop their it cannot be changed. You can't change the effect to stealth, but that's this almost every effect. So it's really just a nice card in general, and I've really enjoyed using it in my time. And for the XYZs, one dweller for graveyard dependent decks, and if you use a Zefras Sabers and Exceed material, it will go up to 22. Copy Rhapsody and Berserk. The more I use this card, the more I like it. It's great right now because there's so many decks. Like I've found even Infernoid decks, if you make this and they don't mill great to start, banishing 2 cards from their graveyard can set them back a turn or two. And Necros, it's obviously great because you can banish their ritual spells. And when you're done with it, you can piggyback it on an XYZ and give it a bit of a little bit, 1,200 more attacks. That's pretty nice. One copy of Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion, you know, it's a great card. You know, I don't think it's not a bit overrated, but in terms of usage, it's a pretty good card, and I really have enjoyed testing it so far. One copy of Castel, you know, it's a standard. It's great. The Book of Moon effect is not bad. Main thing is you want to spend cards, and that's what it's good at. One copy of Cowboy for gaming people. Pretty simple. We put them down to 800. We want to end the game right there. One copy of number 101, because I run both 101 and Castel in a lot of my decks. I explained this in some of my other deck profiles as well, but I just think that I'd rather have the 101 when something like Ab-Zero hits the field than regret it when I don't. So I feel like this is always going to be good just to play 1-on-1 of both. One copy of Exciton Knight, you know, when you're behind, you know, obviously I don't play Black Rose Dragon, so when I'm behind, make this, nuke the board, come back. You know, I feel like if I'm making this, I'm in a bad position to begin with, so why not run it? One copy of M7. Now, you might say, Aura, how do you make M7? Well, most of the time when you do make M7, you're making it with Secret of the Yangzing and a Horus that's already taken your opponent's monster. The reason you do this is because Oracle has obviously 4 different effects, but the Exceed effect allows you to draw a card and discard a card. So when you make it with, say, you make Oracle with, say, make Oracle with M7, it actually allows you to pitch a card, and it actually allows you to draw a card and discard it. So when you make it with M7, whatever monster you just discarded, you can just add it back to your hand with M7's effect. It's a really nice little combo you can do. And obviously Oracle has, you know, 4 different effects, but like the main thing we'll care about is that it searches on activation. And then now we're getting to the side. This is where I go in a little bit more detail now. One copy of Chao Feng. Now, this card is here just for the Cliffort matchup because this card sticks on the board against Cleese. They have a lot of trouble dealing with it because they rely on monster effect activations, whether it's Helix, Scout, or Scout is obviously a spell card, but my bad. But its main thing is it negates they have to get rid of this off the board, or you lose, or they lose. And the great thing about it is most of the time you'll also be siding Ghost Ogres, so when he dies, you get to search Ghost Ogre, which means if he tries to activate a Scout, Ghost Ogre will be like, no. Speaking of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, she's just here for the Cliffort matchup, anti-Scout card, pretty simple. 2 copies of Effect Veiler, opposite reason for the Necros matchup, we don't like Trish, so typically, like I said, this will go in the Necros matchup, so I don't get Trished. 3rd copy of MST for the Cliffort matchup. 2 copies of Spell Shattering Arrows, a great card against Cleese, and the reason you can't run Fairy Wind is Fairy Wind will blow up your Oracle, and you do not want that, because you want to keep maintaining the other effects, so. 2 copies of Pendulum Moratorium. I also fiddled with siding with Shared Ride, but I found that I feel like with this deck, it's one of those decks where you really want to keep your cards in your Pendulum zone. So I feel like Pendulum Moratorium or whatever its CCG name, is a really good side deck card for this particular deck. So I would say, you know, it's worth, especially if Pendulums take off, this card could go up in value since it's a secret rare in World Superstar. So it's dirt cheap now, so now might not be a bad time to pick it up. 3 copies of Royal Decree because, again, I don't run back row, and I'd rather stop my opponent's back row. This is especially for this Teller Knight matchup, but it's for any kind of back row heavy deck. So a lot of rogue decks are very back row heavy, and I hardly run any. So why not side triple Royal Decree? 2 copies of Iron Wall. This is the last 2 side deck cards. This is obviously good against Ritual Beasts and Mass Tier and Dark Law spam hero decks, and Infernoids. But it's just a good generic good card. It's something it's an option to side in against Necros as well to keep their Valks and Trishas from going through. So I like the card, and especially because I can't side Mistake, because this deck searches a ton. There's so many search cards in this deck. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I considered Shared Ride, tested it, and didn't like it. But so anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video today. Really appreciate it when people watch my videos. Tune in on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you like what you saw from this video, please subscribe. It's Orstorm, signing out.